Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome
Hi.
to the Alana and Mo Show. Technology and spirituality married.
Yeah, we haven't been here for what? A week? We
Technology
took a
and
break.
spirituality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. I know we've had a lot of stuff going on, but I want to kick this off by talking about how to create peace in the Middle East. Are you cool with that? Is
I'm
that
cool with that. I think I
yeah.
have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I feel like you might know because you're Israeli,
Right.
so why not? Right? Let's ask all the questions that, well, it'll be like
Yeah.
ask the Israeli hour.
Oof. Hope I'm not gonna get into trouble.
You might. Let's see what happens. I want to kind of
I'm
like
trying to avoid those subjects usually, but I know you want to talk about it.
yes, yeah, I like to make you uncomfortable. That's that's
Hmm.
that's the key to our marriage.
Yeah.
That's why it's lasted so long.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring it back to, do you remember the conversation that we had in the car maybe like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when you were saying that you were wanting to take the mezuzah down?
Oh my God. That was a long time ago. That was like actually 5 months ago. But
How do you remember that?
um
How do you
well,
remember?
because it was the day that the war started in Israel.
Oh, okay.
Like five months ago, and I remember my mom calling me, and she's like, all the anti-Semitism like problems that people in universities start like protesting, and she's like, you should like put down the mezuzah in the house, and I'm like, not thinking about it. I was just like, did it for a second,
You
but
did
then
it.
I did it for a second,
Yeah.
and then
And then you told
you,
me, right?
yeah, I told you, and then you kind of looked at me like I'm crazy, and then I put them back like right away. But that's good. Yeah, that's what happened, right?
So that's not exactly what happened because you didn't just agree with me immediately to,
Right. It took me like 2 hours. You left the house and you came back, and yeah, yeah.
yeah. So walk us through what was happening.
Um, what happened? Um, so yeah, as I said, like I talked to my mom, and I was like, kind of like, why do I need to show? Like I think I left. I was in fear, right? I was like kind of in fear. I was like,
Yeah.
why do I need to show my symbol of, I don't know, maybe someone gonna get upset about it,
Yeah.
especially this time. I'm like, yeah, like doesn't do anything for me, but I'm just gonna take it down and maybe protect my family if like a crazy person gonna come by and just try to do something. But obviously, like that was 5 months ago, so I fully understand what happened. But yeah, but that's not really peace in the Middle East we're talking about here. I
Well,
don't
what made
think.
you change your mind to keep it up?
That was a stupid act. Um,
Hmm.
it was like I'm from fear and I didn't want to live in fear, but it's something to do with Middle East, I think. Peace in the Middle
I think
East.
it does. I think it has everything to
Oh,
do with what's happening in the Middle East. How doesn't it? Because so many people here, Jews are afraid, which I completely understand. I think everyone's living in fear and everybody wants to hide and when you're doing that, and I think this is the reason why you decided to keep it up, you realize that the vibration that you're sending out is out of fear, right?
hmm.
And then that's what you attract because whatever you are vibrating at is exactly what it is that you are a match for in the universe. And that's what the universe sends you. So I think what we talked about in the car 5 months ago is how can you instead be a vibration of bravery or trust or knowing that you're living in a safe world and that everything around you is peace because that's what you see, and when you swap out your vibration for that, that's what you attract, and because of that the mezuzah was kept up and nothing ever happened.
Yeah, I guess. I think when you live in fear, you see fear, right? And I think that's maybe why it didn't make sense. I didn't want to see fear. Um,
Do You didn't want to look around our neighborhood and be like, these were all potential people that could attack me, or anyone in this world could be, someone that could come in and do harm to me. Why can't I actually see the world as the opposite of that
Yeah.
and manifest that as my world? And I think that that's why it has everything to do with how to create peace in the Middle East, because it starts with the individual looking at the world as a place that shouldn't be feared.
Right. But
I know that's a big statement, right? When people are murdering each other, but how do we stop that?
how do you stop that? Yeah. Like it's,
Because they're born in fear, because everyone is raised in fear, both sides.
yeah, they're raised in fear, but also like, there's a lot of egos and a lot of,
That's from fear. Fear and ego
mhm,
are the same. Fear comes
mhm.
from ego. I have to keep my ego intact. And if I don't keep it intact, then someone's going to actually know my truth. So I'm afraid. So I have to like make sure that that mask is like tightly affixed to my face, and I have to defend everything to make sure that I have all of my things in order. And it's all ego. Ownership of things is ego. Thinking that we own land is ego.
Yeah, but the problem, like, not that I'm disagreeing with you, it's just like talking about the Middle East, like it's been like that for century. Like the fear and the ego and unfortunately people think that if you're not gonna protect yourself, you're gonna get attacked, and that's why they kind of like, oh, this is my land and this is my belief, and um because that's unfortunately, looking back like 300 years, like all the last 300 years, this region always was being conquered and occupied by other people that took someone land. It's like the Turkish, the British, like every like the Romans, like every the Greek just came to this region and just took over. So I think like they're raised in this kind of they're raised in fear. So they're like, okay, I'm going to protect myself by, attach myself to land and my religion. Yeah.
So people are only trying to claw back land that they think is theirs because they've been told that it's not theirs, when in actuality, the earth belongs to everyone and no one. When we delineate countries and we delineate states and we put up walls, we're actually going against the natural order of things. People break laws because there are laws. People are trying to get more because they believe there isn't enough, when in actuality, there is enough. And when you think about what you're really fighting for, to like hold on to this piece of land, who really wins when you're keeping the land, right? For all of these years, if the trade-off is living in fear.
Yeah, no, like the war is not for the people. The war is for the government, the leaders, whatever. Like the people that really wants to keep the war going.
Yeah. I
Like
think that's the whole thing. Because I remember when we went to Israel a few years ago, and it's like Palestinian children,
mhm,
teenagers,
yeah,
right? So like such sweet kids,
hmm,
right? We're on the beach in Tel Aviv. I know we've
yeah,
told this story before. And they're amongst all the teenagers in Israel, right? Everyone's like hanging on the beach, but they're not hanging with each other. And they're fully dressed. Like they're like not at all putting on a bathing suit. Like they're wearing what they're supposed to be wearing, but like they want to be there.
hmm,
And it broke my heart to see that, because like all of these rules and all of these ideas are coming completely from somewhere else, when there's newer generations that are cropping up that really just want to hang with each other.
yeah.
And I don't even know that like the younger generations of Israelis like care about the land to the degree that they were told to care about this land. They're
No, they
just like
don't. Most,
concepts.
yeah, most of them don't.
Most of them
Uh,
don't, but yet how many die for it?
yeah, like maybe we're getting into politics and like conflict here, but um, I think the majority of the Israeli don't want this. They don't want to. They really want to live in peace, and a lot of people on the other side want to live in peace. The
So this is what
problem
we have.
is, yeah,
People
the problem
want hate.
is that when you keep oppressing your people, and you kind of prevent them from really doing the things that they want to do, the next thing they're going to do, they're going to like, oh, when you oppress them and they kind of like, and then you say like, oh, you know why you feel this way? Because these guys over the fence, they cause you to do, to live like that. It's easy argument. Like I know who's on the other side. Like we have neighbors here, and I like when I was in the army, like I was hanging out with these people in their houses. So most of them want peace. Most of them wants to kind of live and see the children kind of getting great education, and um, but then there are stories, and they that keep them being victim, and
And who keeps them as a victim?
to be, I think like the government and themselves. So yeah, so there's like two options. One is to stay victim and say like, everything around me happened because of the outside, like because the people over the fence and like the Israelis or the Palestinian, or you can stop being the victim and stop thinking about the past and really start looking at like, what can we do today to make life better? you know
Yes.
Always thinking about, you know all the Jews, what they went through the Holocaust, right? They got kicked out of the houses in Eastern Europe. They left everything there. My family left everything in Turkey. A lot of some of my family was wealthy, and they left everything behind, and they had to move. Uh, so there are two options. We can knock on the doors like in Eastern Europe and say, like, give us our houses back, or we can say, like, you know what, we right now here, let's make the best of it. And I think that's how we can solve the situation.
That's really well said. And especially, you realize that when you're staying in the victim mentality, all you want to do is fight, right? That's all you can
Right.
do is fight, because you always think that the answer is outside of you, right? And that's what everyone's been doing. And the fighting, as we all know, I mean, it's quite obvious. Like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and thinking that you're going to get a different result, right? So we've been fighting for like centuries
Mm-hmm.
and never getting the result that we really want, which means that the only other thing that we can do is change what we're empowered to change, which is our inside environment.
Yep. Like if you're looking back at the history, you know, everybody conquered someone. You know,
Yeah,
we the American came here and did bad things. The
yeah,
Spanish, everybody came and saw land and killed or like did something to the people and occupied it.
yeah,
That's a cycle. Like everybody needs to understand it's a cycle. I'm not saying like probably, like when the Jewish came, they did probably bad things. They kicked the lands like the Palestinian that were there, but it happened.
yeah,
Let's move on.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Let's move on because like, otherwise like we're gonna keep fighting each other, and that's not gonna lead to anything, just more deaths, and that's a tragedy.
Yes. Like if you were to not change your perspective about the mezuzah and felt as though you're living in a safe reality, you would have instead taken the mezuzah down and started to believe and thereby create a reality that's not safe, because your vibration would be felt by all people that were around you, and it would be seen in your eyes that like any person that you come in contact with could be a potential attacker. And that
Yeah.
would be how you would have an interface with all of the people in the world, because you just don't know when you're going to be attacked, right? Versus saying, I believe that I'm living in a safe reality and actually can see the good in my neighbor who is Palestinian, right? And I actually remember that we're all human, which is the one thing that I think that we all forgot. We all forgot that that's the one thing that we all have in common, that we all came from the same place and we're all going back to the same place. And the question is, what do we do during the time that we have while we're here on this earth that's really just been, kind of like lent to us? It's not something that any of us can ever own. And when we feel like that we own it, then we have to fight for it. And we have to look around and say, well, no, it's not yours. And then I start to create a reality of delineation and looking at other folks that it's their fault and saying that I could be a victim, so I need to defend myself. And I think that that's kind of like the mechanics of what's everyone's like living through. And you have, folks on the Palestinian side are being, trained, like, even though like they're born as humans, like everyone starts out the same, they're being trained just like, children in Israel are being trained, so you cannot be a whole person except in our society and feel the love of God and have an abundant life. You can't feel that humanity inside of you that you were born with, like your birthright, until you take over that land, because you'll feel it then. You have to be on that land to feel it. When we all know that that's not true, because you were able to switch your mentality in the car when we were talking to being like, yeah, you know what, I can actually change the way that I feel. And like what you're talking about before, like being in the Holocaust, everything is taken from you. I remember Viktor Frankl wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, and again, same situation, everything was taken from him, literally everything. His family was murdered, his career was over, they burnt his manuscript, and he had such a realization in the camps that even though the entire outside was like the most chaotic mess that could ever be, and he couldn't control any of it, he had control over one singular thing. He had control over the way that he felt. He had control over his perspective, and we all have that. And when we have that, then we're powerful, and we are more powerful than as a whole than like the top 1% that are benefiting from this fight.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, like for me, it was easier for me to shift the perspective, and it took like 2 hours to shift the perspective, because I didn't have a lot of kind of baggage, I didn't have like history of like, but I'm thinking about the Palestinian, right? Like when you grew up, and since you were born, you kind of like trained to hate, pick a side, right? You just like,
Right.
you hate those guys. Can they switch, like when they like 18, when they like 21, can they see that, or they already trained, the brain is trained to kind of see like fear and being a victim, right? Like that's like, and I don't know, I don't think they can, I don't know if they can do it easily. So the question is like, how can we help everybody kind of to shift their perspective, like I don't know.
I think it's by living in that vibration of truth,
You're right,
of remembering who
but
we are.
right.
Because if they remember who they are, right? Like if you actually remember, wow, you know what? I was born thinking that everyone was equal, and at some point I was trained to hate this group of people, then you can actually remember that the people on the other side were the same as well.
Yeah.
And if you're someone that could actually start to tap into any elevated emotion like love or joy ahead of having to get something on the outside, like if you are able to do that, shift your perspective, even though there's chaos going on everywhere, and there's chaos going on in your life. I could tell you 100 reasons why you should be afraid of things, but I'm not going to do it right now. I mean, look, you quit your job, you're starting your own company, you got a kid that's about to go into college, we have crazy expenses. I could start to make you scared, right? But you choose empowerment because it lives inside of you, and with that you can create the reality that you want. So the whole thing is that if enough of us start to do that, that is a vibration that is felt. And all folks across the world can start to actually feel this kind of a thing. And some folks may never feel it, but when they're walking on the street and they're feeling that vibration from you, it might remind them of their humanity. And it might remind them of some part of them that they completely forgot that they might want to make bigger, because we can all do that regardless of what's happening on the outside. And I think that this is why this is really happening, because when we have to take sides, just the very act of taking a side makes you angry, right? And you
Mhm.
have to like go around and like gather consensus, find like a lot of people to like agree with you to make you feel better for being so angry, right? That
Mhm.
is a low vibrational act. And being in that low vibration is exactly where that top 1% who's like pulling all of the puppet strings wants us to be.
Yeah.
And we're giving all of our energy then to them. And we don't even know why we're doing it. And that keeps us not questioning. We don't question the media. We don't question why we do jobs that we hate. Like that keeps us out of creating. That keeps us out of uniting and out of remembering that, again, we are all human. We were born the same, from the same place, going to the same place. And so like, how can you look at someone like that, you know, who you were trained to hate, having compassion for them, that they were born into what they were born into, is the first way to kind of ground back into your own neutrality. Because when you're in neutrality, you can now choose however you want to feel. You can choose joy, you can choose love. And then all of a sudden the world shifts, because that's your vibration and that's what gets sent back to you. Everything shifts. Like I remember seeing my friend from college, the second she got into the car, like the first thing she said, she moved from Israel, right? And I remember saying to her, wow, you know, are you like, can you believe you're here? Like it must be like, it must feel so like amazing, you know, that like you feel like you're in a safer place now. And she's like, no, 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 you know, I feel like at any moment anything could happen, you know, like we're so hated here, you know, like I need to have my girls in special private schools, like you just never know. And I just remember sitting there, I'm feeling such compassion for her, because I know that that's all she then sees. Those are only the markers she would see in her world, and that's what she would attract to herself. That's the reality she's building. We are creating this reality. So why not create a reality based in truth of who we are? And that's like an individual shift.
Yeah. Yeah. No, easy to say. I think we need to think about ways to make like to make action, like to have actions, because like just by saying it, yeah, you're right. You know, like I wish it was true and everybody can see it, but like what can we do? And not just like walking happy in the street, like what we can actually do
Yeah.
to make
This is
that
where
shift.
technology maybe can come in. I remember you were talking about one, was it a company that was trying to like
Yeah, it's like
folks?
this guy is Israeli. He's creating this startup called Dugri.
Mm,
Dugri is the word in Hebrew.
mm,
Um, the meaning is truth. So he's creating like a platform where two sides can talk, like on video on Zoom, um, and have a debate. Now, I don't know if it's the right way to do it. You know, like I don't think we should debate. You know, yeah, we can, but we should also agree that we're different. Like, and we don't need to convince, because debate. What is debate? Debate is like the meaning of debate. You want to convince the other side that you're right. You know, like
I don't agree with like, so we
right,
need to celebrate that we're all different. We're all
right,
different.
exactly.
We're all we're
And
like a
it's something
puzzle,
that they be
you
different, but
know?
also talk about the things that we actually seem that we the same, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so I, when you were telling me about this, I remember saying that if they could have a conversation about what they have in common,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and actually get to that heart-centered place where they recognize, wow, this is a human.
Right.
This is a human. Oh my God, we're all just human.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea is like using AI to pick the subject for the debate. So, no, let's debate
Mm,
about land. Let's debate about, but yeah, like let's talk about how we're raising our children, like what kind of education we're
yeah,
getting, like that, what kind of recipe we're making. Like that
yeah.
could be a good, and I think that's what's going to bring us closer because like I think I saw it today like like it was like an article about the leader in the Hezbollah is
Mm,
like the organization in Lebanon, and it was an interview with some Israeli, they're talking about the leaders in Hezbollah, and they say like one thing that he said that like one number two in the Hezbollah, he's a normal person. He's waking up every morning, kissing his children a good morning, and going to work, and he really care about his children. He's really, I'm like, and he's like, it's gonna be hard for people to hear it, but he's a normal person. He's not like a crazy person.
Exactly.
So like if we're talking about like our routine in the morning, between like, oh, I'm doing yoga. Oh, you doing, I don't know, you're going to the mosque and praying. What do you like? Why are you doing it? And um what spirituality is for you? I think that's definitely going to bring us closer. So I kind of recommend this guy that created this platform. Let's talk about similarities and not differences in debate. But
Did you? You
I did.
recommend?
I did say that.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, thumbs up. But I think people want. That's another thing, right? Like people don't want the good news, right? Like if you create a
Yeah.
platform
Yeah.
like that, you want to
Yeah.
have the argument,
Right.
right?
That's kind of the whole thing. And again, we have to like remember what we're really fighting for, because like we've been doing this for so many centuries, but like no one ever benefits and no one ever feels good from it. And like the last time I was in Israel, I remember like everyone had anxiety. Like we can't keep going on this way, which means that we need to just have a new way forward, and do something radical, which is just go back to our oldest way of being, which is unity.
Yeah. So
Like that's
yeah.
that's literally it. Because like if you think about it, like it's this top 1% that benefits from us actually being distracted enough for them to do other things in the world that like we're not even really noticing. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of like really what's truly
Yeah. The
happening.
problem is like we so like most of us so distracted that we don't think this is actually true. You know.
Right. We don't even stop to even ask
Yeah.
and question why
Yeah.
we're really doing this. Are we even happy? Because we are born and raised in a fear-based like management program, which is the world as it is right now, so that we normalize not being happy.
Mhm.
Like that is normal for us. Like we totally do not even know how to be happy. Like if I ask people like, like when I used to teach positive psychology workshops, I'd be like, what do you love to do?
Mhm.
Like if you could just like choose anything, right? Like as like some kind of like purpose-filled role in your life, you could be anything. Like what did you love to do even when you were a kid? And they're like,
Yeah. Right. Like I asked this question to my mom one time, and she's like, "Wow, that's a very good question. I never thought about it. Oh,
never
you're
thought about
75
it.
years old. Okay."
Never even ever thought about it. And so like we don't even allow ourselves to remember what we love. And then like if we're lucky enough to remember what we think we love, like we're not even sure about it. We're like too afraid to even do it because again, we're like used to being afraid,
Hmm.
because that's like how we've been programmed. So we do everything out of survival. So like in survival, you just keep your head down and you don't look up and ask the questions, when in actuality, we need some really crazy catastrophic shit to be going down, which is what's happening right now, for everyone to at some point start to have these conversations and start questioning
Yeah.
about what's really going on. Because I'm going to tell you, folks are going to get exposed. Like that top 1% is going to be exposed, and you're going to find, like, you'll be shocked. It will be shocking to know that they're actually like, it's like spanning the countries that you thought were fighting each other,
Yeah.
even though the people are fighting each other, but those top 1% are like totally in cahoots and just watching the whole thing. And like, that's what's happening, and every time I see something on the news about that, which I never watch anymore, but like whenever like, it just comes up on my phone, just because like I opened my phone and I see something, like I know all of that stuff coming at me is to keep me in fear and is to keep me taking a side. When in actuality, our superpower is remembering that we can anchor in happiness, joy, love, truth, like all that's in us already. But we have to be neutral to do that, to see what's going on, to have clarity, to start asking questions. We have to reign in neutrality. And if enough of us do that, that energy is felt, and
Yeah.
then over time, we can actually transform the energy of the people on earth. And that's kind of the new earth that we're leaning into, which is one of unity, creation, abundance, like tech innovation, like some of the most like exciting times of our life, and especially this global shift in humanity that we see is it's happening now because of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like we have to question everything. And I think the problem is like most of us don't, right? Like I'm questioning everything now, but I remember the time that I wasn't, like
Right.
when I thought that the government actually care about like our lives, right? They're kind of here to protect us and like care about us. No, they there for their own benefit. Uh and yeah, like I see sometimes I know what you're talking about, like see sometimes like news, and I'm like, okay, I know why this news coming up right now, like so related to someone getting benefit from it, you know, bitcoins and like Bitcoin news and other news. So it's kind of like interesting.
COVID news, like
Yeah.
anything to keep us thinking that the world is ending, like all around us,
Right.
that we can try to claw onto like what little we
So
have.
sometimes I think like the weather is like that, like
Yeah,
the weather forecast. I had this thought for many years that
yes,
how can you screw up weather like that? Like you say, like it's gonna
yeah,
snow tomorrow and it's like 40 degrees. Like
because
uh
they want us to go to the store.
they go to the store, get like the
Yeah,
salt, they like boost the economy, like, oh, you guys have extra salt. So let's just like tell everybody it's gonna like seriously, like this with our technology, like you should be able to forecast the weather. And I think like
solid.
Google has like a AI models that doing pretty good,
Yeah,
forecasting like minute to minute.
yeah,
um I don't know why it's not in production, but probably they don't want it to be in production. um but yeah, like I don't think weather is so hard to forecast with our with the technology that we have today, you know
right. So when you start to see the world through this lens, that literally everything that, is being fed to you with a certain filter, you start to just be like, you know what? I want to make my own news.
yeah.
I want to make my own news, and I don't feel like having to discern whether or not things are true anymore, because the only thing is that's true is the way I feel. And I kind of want to like end this on like an action item, because like that's the purpose of why we meditate, because like every morning we can sit in the cultivation of whatever like elevated emotion we want to feel for the day.
Hmm.
Like I want to know what gratitude feels like. What does it feel like in my body? Like what thoughts are kind of like attached to my gratitude today, and kind of
Hmm.
just that and practice that. And like, sometimes I go to the place of love and just feel like a deep sense of love, and I feel filled up by that. And you don't even realize how little you need on the outside, how little you need at all
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
already just filled yourself up with that. And then to go the extra step of like, what would it be like to send that love across the world to even folks that are doing harm, and have compassion for them, because they don't even know what we know. They don't even
Yeah.
know that you could do that. But if enough of us do that, then they can actually feel that vibration. And we could talk about like the quantum energy field and how that's carried across another time. But I feel like that's why we're here. We're here to power this shift so that some folks on the other side of the world might actually feel that vibration in their body and be like, gee, I want to make that bigger. I like that feeling. I remember that about me. And then we're empowered again.
Yeah, and maybe like last point for me, like we started like with fear, like
Mhm.
this conversation, and maybe we can take fear as a positive thing in terms of like
Mhm.
this is an indicator that you should start questioning everything around you. Right? It's
Yes,
kind of like,
letting you
and I
question.
and I do. It's like when I feel fear, and you can start feeling it. Where do you feel? Where do you feel fear? Like chest, and like you feel like
Yeah. You
heart
feel a tightness in your
fight
chest.
near your chest, and
Yeah.
like like that's kind of like maybe we should look at it as like, wow, here's an indicator, physical indicator that
Yeah.
something not right.
Right.
And start questioning like, why are you afraid? And I think maybe when you go down to go like, why am I afraid? Oh, that thing. Oh, and that's actually, I should not be afraid of that.
Right. Get curious about it.
Be
Like I'm
curious
afraid
about the
of
fear.
something that hasn't yet happened.
Right, exactly, it didn't happen. It's in your
Right.
head.
Right.
um so yeah, so and maybe like you do this exercise and you kind of like, you know what, I should not feel this way right now. So I'm gonna choose not to feel.
And that's just it. If you have already defined like, what your default of like love or
Right.
gratitude,
You
compassion
know what it feels like.
like in your body,
Right.
you can shift back to that,
Right.
and
Exactly.
then you get back all of that energy for enjoying your life,
Right.
which is like what we're supposed to be doing. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
We forgot about that.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. That's fantastic. All right. So that was another one. That was fun.
I think it was episode 4.
Episode 4.
Yeah,
Wow.
woohoo, 4.
Woohoo.
Lucky 4. Is 4 is lucky?
44.
44 could be lucky.
All right.
All right, guys. Lots of love to you all.
Bye.
Bye.